Hey everybody, welcome to episode 45 of the Go Get Outside podcast. This is your host, Jason Milligan. Welcome back, welcome aboard. Before we get started today, I want to send a special thanks to my friend Eli Fry, and all of you should thank him as well because this episode exists because of him. This was his idea. He put me in touch with the guests, and I am very happy that he did. On today's show, we will be speaking to Paul Hytinen and Dylan Gonda, who both live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Perhaps you have forgotten or don't know that Michigan is split in two parts. There is the Mitten Hand, and then there is an Upper Peninsula above it, separated by the Great Lakes. Well, that is where Paul and Dylan live. They are two people separated by 40 years in age. Paul is 60, Dylan is 20, but both of them, for their own unique personal reasons, decided to do the 2,714-mile backcountry cycling trail from Banff, Canada to Antelope Wells, New Mexico, known as the Tour Divide. When Erica and I were traveling across the U.S. for 2 months, we stopped at Paul's home and recorded this episode where we go in depth about this Tour Divide trail. We have as much information in this episode, specifically about this one cycling trail, as we normally would cover in our roundtable discussions. So if anyone out there is curious about this trail, interested in doing this trail, there's going to be a whole lot of information that will be valuable to you in this episode. But before we get started, we need to cover a couple of terms that are going to come up at least once, if not more, throughout this discussion. If you have never heard the term Youper, if you are not someone from the northern Midwestern part of the country, and you've never heard the term Youper, as I had not, a Youper is a person from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the UP, thus the UP Youper. And Paul uses a term that he thankfully defined for me because I had never heard of it, Sisu, which is a Finnish word that means strong, fearless, and never giving up. So now that you've had your vocabulary lesson for the day, let's not waste any more time. Let's go hear from Paul and Dylan.
Paul Hytinen. I'm born and raised in Ishpeming, Michigan. I was a career miner for 37 years. I retired mining 5 years ago. Back when I was 51 years old, when I graduated from college, my 2 adult children bought me a mountain bike. I've loved it, and I've met on many biking adventures, and I was able to lose some weight and have fun at it.
My name's Dylan Gonda. I'm 20, from lots of places. Originally Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then Atlanta, Georgia, then Portage, Michigan, and now Marquette. I'm a junior at Northern Michigan University. Been mountain biking since, I was probably 6 or 7 in the mountains in New Mexico. Yeah, this is a natural progression for me, going bigger and bigger adventures.
So I noticed you say you grew up more or less mountain biking, and you started mountain biking because your kids gave you a bike. So what inspired them to give you a mountain bike, do you know?
They noticed that I was getting a little overweight and I was getting short of breath. That I couldn't do the normal wrestling activities with them, and they would always gang up on me, and it would always be this battle between us in the living room, and they were starting to kick my ass. So they seen that my health was going downhill, so they bought me an entry-level mountain bike. It was a Giant, and I loved it, and since then I progressed. Biking has definitely improved my physical and my cardiovascular conditioning.
Basically, your children gave you a bike because you weren't a challenge for them anymore, is what
Correct.
It sounds like.
Yes.
So you two are separated by 40 years, and you are not related, as far as I know, correct? So what brings you two together?
Well, I decided to do this Tour Divide about 13 months before. So in summer of 2015, I was out in New Mexico mountain biking and just kind of decided on a whim I'm going to accomplish it. So about a year of preparation went into it. And then, I'd say about a month and a half before the start of the Divide, I did a presentation in Marquette, kind of a fundraiser, a fun little event, chatting about it with some other racers. And Paul was there asking questions and like taking a lot more notes than I thought most people would for this like fun little presentation. Then, kid you not, like a few days later, he called me up and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do the Divide. Like, I need some advice for tents." So that's how we kind of met, and then went from there.
What had happened here is 5 years ago, a fellow guy in town, Danny Hill, he's kind of like biking guru here.
He's a bike god.
He's the president of Rambon. I mean, he's a big biker. He had done the Tour Divide in 2011. And I heard bits and pieces of his story, and it just intrigued me over the years. I was out biking in Sedona, Arizona here this past spring, and I see a Facebook page where Dylan and Danny Hill were giving their presentation. So I hurried up, we got to get back home, can't miss it. So I went to their presentation at a local microbrewery, and when I seen it, I just says, I gotta do it. My wife and I, we leave the brewery, we get in the car, I sat down and I looked at her, I says, "Hey, you think I can do it?" She said, "Paul," she says, "you got that Finnish sisu in you." He says, "You can do anything." So right there, I made up my mind that night I was gonna do it, and I had 5 weeks to prepare for this event.
So we have mentioned the Tour Divide numerous times so far, and I know that a large portion of people listening right now are thinking, what the hell is the Tour Divide? And in their mind, they're like, oh, is this like some 10-mile, 30-mile, 40-mile race that these guys are talking about? Who wants to explain what the Tour Divide is?
Well, I first heard about the Tour Divide in about middle school, probably 7th grade. I saw the Ride the Divide documentary and was instantly hooked on this idea of riding your bike from Banff, Canada to Antelope Wells, New Mexico, 2,714 miles along the Continental Divide, along the Rocky Mountains. The race has been going on since 2003, 2004.
Yes.
I think, right around then. And it's been really small until the documentary came out. Then each year it kind of gets bigger and bigger. This year for us, there's 180 starters?
184 starters southbound.
Yeah, so it's turned into a pretty big event, but it's totally self-supported mountain bike race. You're on off-road for 90% of it. No outside help, so you break it, you fix it type deal. And I think it's one of the biggest mental and physical tests out there. It was brutal. I mean, you climbed the equivalent of Mount Everest like
six or seven times. From sea level to summit, 7 times.
Yeah, so it's something else. And it's something that when I first saw it, I knew like instantly like, oh, I have to do this. And so I was doing road racing in middle school and then started getting more into doing mountain bike racing and just, this is the goal. And now that I made it work, which is pretty nuts. I'm pretty proud of it still.
Is it the exact same trail as the Continental Divide?
No, it's a little bit off because the Continental Divide trail, like the hiking trail, follows a similar path. You cross it a few times. And at one point we're on it for a good 6 or 7 miles. But people have biked the whole Continental Divide trail, but there's a lot of property issues. There's lots of private land and public land issues with mountain bikes on it. So you get close, but not that. It's a whole mapped out route.
The TD trail, I think, is supposed to be within 50 miles of the actual watershed divide from north to south through the Rocky Mountains.
And as you said, it's from Banff, Canada to where in Mexico?
Middle of nowhere, New Mexico. Right? Basically, you just finish at a little small Border Patrol station with New Mexico and Mexico. It's called Antelope Wells. There's nothing there. It's like the most anticlimactic finish to the biggest thing of your life. You finish, there's maybe a car there waiting for you, but you finish and there's like a little gate, and then you got to figure out how you're going to get out of there and get home.
Yeah, because right there you're 60 miles from basically the nearest any kind of organized transportation. So
what everyone listening doesn't know is we are in Paul's home right now in Michigan, and he has us surrounded with a museum of this trail. So directly across from me right now is a map of the Continental Divide Trail, which runs, as I said, from Banff, Canada, through, it looks like, cuts into Washington for a bit?
Montana.
So straight into Montana.
Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico.
For 2,700 miles, you said, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And through the Rocky Mountains, which are substantially
Big
high,
mountains.
Occasionally and probably often covered in snow.
There was snow on that route this year, but it was not on the trail.
Yeah, we got real lucky this year. The past few years, they've gotten some really bad snowpack, especially up north. But we were lucky where I only hit snow, had to ride through snow once, not just because it was snowing, but otherwise I didn't hit too much snowpack, which thankful, because there's some stretches like where you're up at 11,000 feet where it could easily be a few feet of snow that you're trying to trudge through and lift your bike over. And yeah, thank God we didn't hit that.
Well, it was an El Nino year. That was one of the reasons why I said, my 5-week preparation period, I'm going to do it. I'm healthy, I have time, I have money, and it's El Nino. And I checked the weather stats out there, and in early May, their snowpack was 58% less than what it is in a normal year. Yeah. So I says, this is the year for me.
Yeah. I'm still, every time I think about the divide and how much effort I put into it, I'm still astonished that Paul did it in that short prep. Like when he called me up, I honestly, for the first few weeks, was humoring him. Like I was like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'll like tell him what gear to buy and like what I'm doing for training, how to work the GPS. I'm like, I don't know about this. Like I don't know him that well. Like let's see how this goes. And like I was messaging Danny Hill, the guy at the Marquette god of mountain biking, and like asked him kind of like, Paul's like serious, right? Like he's actually gonna do this. Like, oh no, he's good. He's a youper. He can handle this stuff. So like,
I was described by a fellow biker here after I got back. He said, Paul, he says, we know you're not the strongest biker. He says, you're not the best biker. He says, but you're like a diesel engine. Once you get going, you don't stop.
You mentioned you were a miner for most of your adult life, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was basically cradle to grave miner. 18 years old, I got involved in the underground iron ore mines locally here. And when they closed in the late 70s, I went to the open pits where I worked my career outside on mobile equipment, shovels, drills, and I had maintenance, and I retired as an electrician.
So the Tour Divide maybe wasn't that tough for you, since you've lived your life working as a miner.
Well, that part's true. That part's true, I guess. Just the toughness, but on wheels this time.
Right. Yeah, that was the difference. You didn't have to walk around. One thing I like is that you guys are so drastically apart in ages. Like I said, 40 years. So the difference in age between you two is twice your age.
Yeah.
It's twice Dylan's age. Mm-hmm. So what I think is nice right here is there's great opportunity for the two of you to explain why you would want to do the Tour Divide, because I think the reasons will be similar and drastically different for someone that's 20 and someone that's 60.
I just thought it was another mountain to climb. I've always been very, very goal driven, and when I saw it instantly, I'm like, I have to accomplish that. And then just seeing more places, just where my life's taking me, just moving around a lot when I was younger, just always wanted to see new places. And then that was probably the biggest push. But also my dad was a huge influence. He got me into mountain biking and road biking in New Mexico. And I think I was watching Tour de France when I was probably just born, like still in diapers. So I've been on bike racing and bike riding my whole life. And he got me into racing when we moved up to Michigan, actually doing races with me and getting more into it. And he was a big influence for pushing me to do it. Like he was a big person telling me like, you should try it, like throw it into it. And then it was also a huge influence because 2 years ago when I graduated from high school, he got diagnosed with colon cancer. So he was like, kind of seeing him get sick and like not be able to ride anymore was a huge push for me. Like he really would love to do this ride. It's like, I'm going to go out there and kick its ass for him. So he was a huge influence for it too. And I think it helped him a lot seeing me do it and like kind of accomplish this huge goal. Yeah. So that was a big push for it, but basically just a big peak. Like another hill to climb before I go conquer Everest. I don't know. My big, huge goal after that, maybe.
It might be a little hard to take your bike up there.
Yeah. There's some people who have taken their bikes up, I think, Kilimanjaro and like some of the bigger ones. So like maybe I'll start with those and then eventually get my bike up to Everest.
All right, Paul, it's your turn. Why would you want to do this trail? Why would you say, well, let me retire from a life of hard work and then go do 2,700 miles on a bike through really rough terrain?
The seed of it was when fellow biker Danny Hill did it in 2011. That kind of seed just kind of tumbled in my mind for almost 5 years. And I was out in Sedona, Arizona, and I was biking out in the desert, and I liked it. And went up to Taos, I biked in the desert and up in the mountains, and I'm thinking, hey, I can take and I can crank at 9,600 feet. And then I started thinking, hey, wait a minute now, maybe I can do the TD. Sure enough, the next day, their Facebook post comes up, says TD presentation coming up. And then I just thought, you know what, Paul, you're looking for a challenge, you're gonna do it. And it's the most expensive free race I've ever participated in.
I still don't like thinking about how much that race cost me.
Yeah. Basically, for me, I was looking for a way to challenge myself mentally and physically this year. And I did it, and I did conquer the divide.
What were people's reactions when you said you wanted to do it? Were they supportive? Did they act like they didn't believe you? Like, oh, yeah, sure, yeah, you'll go do that, and expect you not to? Were they varied? What were people's responses like?
Most people's responses that I was getting was positive. They figured, they knew me, and they says, yeah, Paul, once you make things personal, you put your mind to it, you can get it done. Because they've seen me, build my own houses and, do things where normal people wouldn't do. I do them.
So you already proved yourself to them. So.
Yes, I guess, throughout my life, I proved myself to them, yes.
It was after my freshman year of college where I really decided I was going to go after and go accomplish it. I think it was all mostly positive. Some people questioning me, seeing if I'm okay, asking is everything all right? Why are you doing this to yourself? Are you sure you want to do this? But
did they think you were going through some sort of life crisis?
No, they're asking me seriously, you good? You're gonna be gone for a month and out in the Rockies. You sure you want to do that? No, mostly positive feedback. I was pretty driven. I had it mapped out pretty well of how I was gonna accomplish this goal. So I like to think that people saw that. So they just they knew I could accomplish it.
So let's talk about the preparation because, like you said, Paul's preparation was a little hurried and rushed to make it in time. Clearly, a lot of preparation needs to go into this. So what does that look like?
Oh, man. So, I started about 13 months before is when I decided to do it. I was biking to Albuquerque and just kind of decided. So I had to get all the bike bags for my bike because I was going to use my standard mountain bike, which I used a very unconventional mountain bike for it. I used a full suspension, 27.5-inch mountain bike, which is definitely not the bike of choice for most people. I think it did perfect. It was the best bike. It was the best bike out there, if it's my opinion. But so I had to get all the bike bags.
It is your opinion, by the way.
I beat people on what's supposed to be the best Tour Divide bike, but I had to get all the ultra lightweight camping stuff basically needed, and all the bags on my bike to carry it, plus GPS for it, plus mapping out just how long I wanted to do it, and food wise, because you have to be in charge of getting your own food, figuring out lodging, logistics, and everything. And food definitely was the biggest preparation, trying to see when I'm going for 170 miles, what do I need to eat where I don't either hate myself the next day, get super sick during the ride, or just don't have enough energy. And that was the biggest preparation for me. And then riding a lot. I was doing consistently probably 500, 700 miles a week for a good chunk of last year, building up to it. And that was through the winters up here, it was a mild winter luckily, but it was still going in negative temperatures with some good snowpack, just trying to get out and ride as much as I could.
A mild winter in Michigan is still a rugged winter anywhere else in the U.S.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was an off one, but it was still it's still definitely, there was a few rides where I was in the negative 20s going out and trying to get in the base miles. And then once the snow melted and my classes ended up here, I was able to ride my bike back from the tip of Michigan, Mackinac City, down to Kalamazoo, where I'm from, along Lake Michigan, which is about 400, 500 miles. So I did that. That was my only bike packing experience before that too, which is definitely something most people don't do. Most people get a few years and a few big trips of bike packing and knowing how to move their bike with all the camping stuff before they do it. So both of us kind of came into a limited bike packing experience, which is pretty rare. Normally this is the pinnacle for the bike packing, and this is our first one, which is not common at all. I did a little bit, I did cross country, the normal activities. I'm an active person, so I rock climb in the gym here, cross-country skied, but mainly just trying to get those base miles in is what I focused on a lot, because I knew mentally I could tough it out after being in some, honestly the harsh winters up here got me pretty mentally tough and physically able to push through stuff. Because when you're going out backcountry skiing or snowshoeing or doing some pond hockey when it's negative 30, you learn to be tough pretty fast. So that was a good build up, especially the pond hockey. That was nice being hit by some of the club hockey players, and that makes you pretty tough to be hit by anything on the Tour Divide.
My preparation, it was 5 weeks, but I've had a lot of skills under my belt, from living up here in the UP. I knew how to camp, I knew how to bike, so I was able to put the two together. Before I decided to go, I had 3 questions, and which my buddy Danny Hill, he answered them for me. My first question was bears, because you're spending the first 1,100 miles at a TD in grizzly bear country. So I asked him concerned about bears. He says, don't worry about them. Okay? I says
that is maybe the quickest response to a bear question I've ever heard.
Yeah. So anyways, he said that my next question is, what about water? You need water. He says, you plan your route. He says, you can find water. And then I said, how about navigation? He says, follow your GPS. So once I had those 3 questions answered, I said, yes, I'm going to do it at TD. And then in the 5 weeks, I was able to resource Dylan, which he helped me out fantastically with the Garmin stuff.
Yeah, and, we had good hour-long phone calls. Yes. It's hard because I wasn't up here for the summer. I was back in Kalamazoo working at a summer camp. So He would call me up sometimes, like in the weekends, and I would sit down with my computer up with my GPS, and he would be up here with his, and I would be trying to talk him through how to do some of the things with it, which went surprisingly well for how hard technology sometimes is to convey over like the phone. I'm amazed that we didn't have any issues.
Yeah, so Dylan helped me out a lot, and I would resource Dylan for tents and sleeping bags. The Big Agnes tent is the tent of choice, and then my buddy Danny Hiller, he gave me a laundry list of the take and the don't takes and the do's and the don'ts. Yeah. So due to Danny's experience and Dylan's preparation, I was able to really build off of their experiences. And as far as miles go, I got as many miles as I could in 5 weeks. I probably in the neighborhood of 500-600 miles. I did in the 5 weeks, but I had done like 1,000 miles prior to that out in Arizona. So I was kind of ready, but I could have biked a lot more.
Yeah. There's still things, like looking back on it now, there's still things I would definitely like prepare a little bit differently, and definitely work on my upper body and weightlifting strengths, because there's some points where you got to lift your bike for a few hundred yards going uphill. And that's pretty brutal when you have a 50-pound bike and you're exhausted.
That's interesting, because I kind of didn't think about that, but to a certain degree, it's almost the equivalent, it sounds like, of a portage in kayaking or paddling.
Yeah, there's points you have to literally put onto your shoulders, because like there's one point where I had to wade through a body of water that was pretty deep, like it was up to my waist, and I had to like kind of take off my clothes, just go through it buck naked, just throw my bike on and like get across, and then find out that I kind of crossed at the wrong point, so I had to awkwardly walk naked down the trail. Well, look, it was in the middle of nowhere, but like that happened more than I would like to share. But yeah, there's some other small preparation thing, like just learning how to like basically filtering water. Like I brought iodine droplets with me, and luckily I had to use them 2 or 3 times and didn't get sick, so I learned how to do it pretty well. And just how to move efficiently is something I think I could have prepared a lot better for, because by the end of so I did it in 22 days, and by the end of day 20, I was really fast at the gas stations and like grabbing stuff, moving. But the first day I spent like an hour at a gas station, picking through stuff and like kind of hanging around, talking to people. So
you can eat up so much time.
It's amazing.
You can really do a lot of rookie mistakes, or just you want to get in, out, get it done.
Yeah.
Like when you're riding, you're multitasking. You're riding on your bike, you reach into your bag, you grab out a Snickers bar or whatever. I mean, you learn to rip it open with your teeth, gobble it down, store your garbage, 20 seconds. Yeah, that's it.
You learn how to get pretty fast with it. No, there's definitely the speediness factor, because it was totally baptism by fire for both of us. I mean, we were just jumping into it and like no real experience with this. And then, the first gas station, like I like rolled into, like, okay, now what? Like I've done like the little tour from Michigan. I'm like, I knew what I had to grab, but like I did not think this far ahead about what I needed. Like I knew I wanted to grab a sandwich, maybe a Snickers bar, but just like wasting time looking at, like, ooh, do I want this? Do I want this? Pricing things out. I'm like, I plan on doing it again. When I do it again, I'm grabbing it and running.
Yeah, that's what it was like at Bolton Creek Campgrounds up in Alberta. It was about 68 miles into the TD. There's like 20 of us in that little campground gas station, and everybody's looking at each other. Now what do we do?
Yeah. When I hit it a few hours earlier, and it was raining and snowing on that first day, and I was in there with about like 20 other people, and it was dead silent. And the first stop of the divide, because 180 started, about half of them pulled the plug at some point during the race, which is pretty intense. And it's the hardest race to quit, because you're middle of nowhere. Like you have to quit it smart, because like if you quit, you can be like, oh, I'm done, but I still have to ride 200 miles to the next town, and then I can quit.
It's not really up to you when you're done.
No, it's not really up to you when you quit.
No, we'll hit on that here in a few minutes. I got a neat story about quitting. So.
I never had a thought of quitting. Like there's a few points where I had extremely rough mental. I mean, I think 3 mental breakdowns where I really sat down on the side of the road and like probably threw my bike, or tried to throw my bike, because I like lift up maybe an inch and then just fell over, and I just like stormed off. And
is that why you want to do it again with more strength?
So I could like actually throw my bike. I remember that made me more mad too, and I was already mad. And then just like, it's hard. You're alone for a huge amount of the ride. I was probably alone for 75-80% of the ride, and like that gets really rough for a while, especially when you're experiencing some of the roughest stuff you've ever experienced, like going up roads that no cars really can get up, and going up to 11,800 feet and riding hard. Like that's hard to do when you're by yourself and you don't have anybody to talk to. Especially, I didn't bring any music. I'm never a big person to like ride with music or any distraction, so I'll start singing to myself, start like just yelling at animals, start just going nuts, and that wears on you after a while.
What was your go-to song to sing to yourself?
Oh, I had a lot of ABBA going through my mind. That was a good one. I sang a lot of Johnny Cash and ABBA. I was singing a lot. I was singing a lot of Dancing Queen.
That is an interesting mixture.
Yeah. What I would do to kill time is I would count pedal revolutions up to 100.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 98, 99, 100. 1. I mean, that was a great way to pass time.
No, I'm trying to think what else I did to spend time. I was trying to look for nature. I was kind of bummed. I never saw a bear, which, blessing, that's good. I'm glad I kind of wanted to see a grizzly.
Yeah.
But definitely saw some amazing elk herds. Like, it was gorgeous. I mean, I can't, like, I'm still trying to, it's been what, how many months now? It's
been 3 months.
3 months, and I'm still, like, digesting what occurred. Like, I feel like it's going to take me a long time to fully understand what just happened, because it happened so quick, and you end it at the border, and then all of a sudden you're done. Like,
that's it. You're done.
Yeah, something I've noticed with long distance things, and Erica and I are doing this road trip right now for 2 months, and it's similar for this as it is with backpacking and other things. Because you focus so much on day-to-day things, the days just mix together, and 2 days later, you really can't remember 2 days prior.
I've been looking at, we're preparing for a presentation we're doing here in a few weeks in town, just kind of talking about our adventures and what we saw and lessons learned and stuff. I'm like going through pictures I'll be looking at for a good like hour. I'm like, I honestly do not ever remember taking my camera out at this point. I do not know. And I'll have to look at the maps and be like, I think that's there. Like, I cannot remember. And I definitely was in a race mode for the whole race, but I learned to relax, like, into Colorado and kind of enjoy the scenery a little bit. But my pictures show like sort of really blurry ones up until Colorado, me trying to ride and take a picture too.
I've got some real good vivid memories of the races. You know, I was about 8 days after you and the finishing time, and I more toured than Dylan raced it. I listened to my body. You know, I didn't push it. I wouldn't go more than 80%.
Yeah, I did not do that well.
And I would stop on the top of every hour for 5 minutes, just sit down, have a little bit of food, drink of water, maybe look at the map, look around, take a picture, and then back on the bike. I kind of toured it.
Did you ever try to throw your bike?
No.
You should learn from Paul.
Okay, getting back to quitting. Here's my quitting story. I was about 700 miles into the tour. I was in Seeley Lakes, Montana. I was rooming by myself, and I was just getting over a nasty cold. I had caught a chill the first day, and I caught a cold subsequently. I leave Seeley Lakes at 4:45 in the morning. It was 25 degrees out, dark, and I had maybe 35 miles or so, 40 miles to get to Ovano, Montana. And I'm smoking down these mountain hills with my headlamp on, 25, 30 miles an hour, and you get a wind chill. Okay, and the wind chill's like 0, maybe 5 below 0 with the wind chill. Well, all my gear was geared for 25 degrees above 0. So there I am, I'm freezing my ass off. I'm all alone in the middle of nowhere, and I get on this mountain peak. They're just about sunrise, and I call my wife. I says, hey, I says, I'm about 100 miles out of Helena, Montana. I think I'm going to quit. There was a pause on the phone. She says, Paul, she says, do you got 2 broken legs? I says, no. She says, warm up, call me in an hour. Oh, okay. Click, hang up, you know. Well, what had happened was before I left, I made a deal with my wife. I says, don't let me quit. No matter what's happening, don't let me quit. So an hour later, I'm up on another sunny mountain peak, and I got one bar on my phone. I called her up. I says, hey, I says, yeah, my legs aren't broke. I says, I am going to finish the tour. I only got 2,000 miles to go. So that was the one and only time that I actually wanted to quit. But the factors that led up to it is that 2 days earlier, I rode with a guy. His bike broke, so he was out. Day before that, I rode with another guy. He blew his knee out. So, you know, I'm starting to see failure after failure, and I'm thinking, hey, Paul, you don't want to fail either. But ultimately, with my wife's encouragement, I finished.
I think I had 2 points where I questioned what I was doing.
And you tried to throw your bike.
And I threw my bike and tried to, threw like an inch. It's like but 2 or 3 times. One time, like, coming into the U.S. border of Roosevelt, Montana, you're in the densest grizzly country in, like, southern Canada. Like, it's insane dense. Like, we're on an abandoned road, too. So, like, really no one lives there. And there's signs that are kind of ominously, like, broken, like, do not camp here. Like, keep on moving. It's terrifying. And, of course...
And bear scat all over the road.
Like, you can see huge prints. It's terrifying.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I was riding through that point when it's getting dark, and the one thing I really messed up preparation is my bike light. I just bought a really dinky little bike light at the local shop just because I needed something, because I didn't plan right at night, but I knew it would get a little dark. But I was hitting that section at, like, getting close to, like, the sun was starting to set, and I still had another, like, 40 miles to go before the border, and I wanted to hit it then because I did not want to camp in grizzly country. And, of course, that's that's right when my pedal bearings fail and the pedal fell off. So I'm hiking my bike at that point, like no way to pedal it. Super, super lucky. Guy comes up behind me, kind of chat for him a little bit, and he kind of whispers to me like, "Oh, I got spare pedals, like if you want them," which is unreal because nobody ever carries spare pedals with them on the tour. But he brought flat ones for his knees for later in the race, and this is honestly the luckiest. If he hadn't been there, I would have quit, right? Because I would have gone to the next town, to Roosevelt, to the border, probably a few days from then, and then the next bike shop was 100 miles away, and at that point, like I would have probably pushed on, but it was mentally, like I was pretty devastated for a little bit, and I was able to push on from those with flat pedals, led to some knee and Achilles injuries, but I was able to fix it up later, and then, but that was insanely lucky. I mean, I can't even begin to express how, I mean, that shouldn't have happened. That's 1 in a million chance of a guy coming with extra pedals.
Did you see that guy again?
I did. I saw him in the next town. I bought new pedals and gave him the pedals, and then never saw him again. He was from New Jersey. I think his name was Mark.
Because I was expecting the story to go this way, where you get into town and you say, "Oh, I'm so lucky I met this guy
he never comes
on the trail and gave me these pedals." And then they say, "Oh, what did he look like?" And you describe him, and they say, "Oh, that's old Ted. No one's seen him in 100 years."
No, there was one point, like speaking like hallucinating, like man, when I was in the Great Basin of Wyoming and it was brutal hot, middle of the day, had barely any water left. That's when I was filtering some of the nastiest cattle water you could possibly find in the Great Basin.
Yes.
It was
straight out of a cow
it was
pie?
green. Yeah, it was green. Like so I closed my eyes, dipped in my analogy, and just pretended like it didn't.
Exactly where you were.
Pretended like it didn't happen. And then, but I was riding through there, and that's where the Continental Divide Trail crosses right through the basin. And I see an old man walking towards me with the pack on, with a cap and a feather in it. Kid you not, I still don't know if he was real. Like I stopped and had a conversation when we shared. He had a Coke with him. We shared a Coke, and like he was talking about where he's hiking. Talking about the snowpack and. Then he moved on, and I think like 5 minutes later, I was thinking about the conversation, like, did that? And I looked back, I was trying to look back, I'm like, I think that happens. Like, but yeah, man, quitting, like, hardest ways to quit. Like, I remember my parents are they're my biggest supporters, but they're also like, you're not quitting. Like, we're not going to get you home. Like, so you've got to, they're going to meet me at the border because we have family in New Mexico. Like, we're going to spend time there. So I remember, I think I called them in northern New Mexico. I was having some tire issues, and I was calling them, like, just like frustrated, just kind of like crying a little bit, just being like, this is hard. And like, I don't know. Once I get to the next town, I don't know if I can push off like my gear and stuff. And I remember them being like, "Well, you kind of have to." And then just like, I think hanging up right after that. I'm like, and then I tried to call again. I think they ignored my calls, so they like made me keep on going.
I think that's great that outside people helped both of you push through, because it kind of shows that, you know, there's a toughness in everybody, but everybody kind of needs a little help from time to time.
Just sometimes, you know, it was the right medicine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's...
You know, and the reason why I picked Helena to quit is because the next place to quit with an airport was like Steamboat Springs, Colorado, you know, another 600-700 miles, 800 miles. Yeah. But I did come up with a solution of quitting. I would have got on the nearest road and pedaled east. I would have called my wife and says, "I'm coming east on I-80, you come west, we'll meet somewhere." But then I'm thinking, geez, she's 3 days out. I could be another 300 miles down the route, so why quit? So press forward.
In Helena, there's the big climb out of it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I was going up that, and it's brutal. And I wasn't feeling amazing. I was having some pretty bad knee swelling. My Achilles were kind of bugging me a little bit, and I just overall was not eating the right food. Like I mean, by the end of the divide, I lost 25 pounds. Oh, wow. Did not do that smart. Don't do that. If you do it, but would not.
You don't look like you have that many pounds
back,
to lose.
Which is also not good to lose 25 and then gain it back in like a month and a half period. But I was going up this climb. It's really hard, and one guy rode past me with bikepacking gear, and I waved to him. Like, love waving to other bikers, and like that's what I do. And then he didn't do anything. Like, he looked like he was like crying, and he rolled by. I'm like, well, that was weird. And like I go up a little more, and then another guy comes down, and I'd recognize this guy. He was doing the race, and I like waved him down or tried to wave him, and he just like gave me a little acknowledgement and moved on. And was like, shoot, those are two people who just quit, like just up this climb, and that was hard. That happened a few times. Seeing people quit right around you that's rough.
That was a long grind out of Helena. My memory, if you look at the map, it might be a little different, but my memory was 23 miles, and 21 and a half of it was uphill. 3, 4, 6, 7% grades.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a steep, long grind.
That's when I was singing my ABBA the most, I think, going up some of those climbs. I was really jamming out the stuff, trying to keep myself entertained, because there's so much beauty you can see before it just gets, this is a little boring. Like, I mean, like, there was definitely a stretch where I'm like, Ryan, like, this, I'm kind of ready just to have a bed, and I'm kind of over this a little bit. Like, it's still beautiful, but like, I've seen beautiful. I saw like the southern, like Calgary area with the mountains up there by Banff. I mean, it's like the Alps up there, and then Steamboat Springs was amazing. Like, it was beautiful areas. Yep. And then when you're in that immensely rough space, like, sometimes, like, even that's not enough, and you're just like, I'm kind of sick of this, which I think that's a big reason some people quit. I think it's such a grind. Like, you have to be willing to commit, like, the time to do it. I mean, I did it 22 days, and I did it 27th fastest time this year, 27th, 28th. The winner did it in 13.
Yeah. He's a machine call. Too. I mean, a lot of respect for that guy.
I mean, my goal is to do it in 2018, so not this upcoming summer, but the summer after that, and do it in 17 or 16 days. That's the new goal. We'll see. I think I've learned my lessons. I know how to move fast in gas stations. And I think that's getting a better bike light so I can ride at night.
Yes.
And bringing 2 pedals with me.
And a good tire pump.
Yeah.
So what's an average day look like when you're doing this?
Average day for me is I would be up at 4:20. I'd be on trail by 5 o'clock. And you would pedal, and I would stop at the top of every hour for 3 to 5 minutes. And wherever you had a chance to resupply, whether it be a gas station, a Walmart, or, mom and pop grocery store, you'd resupply. And then I would look ahead and I would say, okay, where am I going to be? Where do I want to be tonight? Am I going to trail camp? And then you just keep on grinding until the sunset. And at about sunset, I would find a flat spot, lay out my tent, maybe 100 feet off the trail, and then go to bed. All the nights, it was in the 20s for me. And what I would do is I would crawl in my tent and I would put on all my clothes. The clothes I was wearing for the day, plus my extra set. Put those on. And I'd put on my balaclava, and I would put on my tassel cap, and I would put on my mittens, and I would get in that nice little huddle position and go to bed.
Yeah.
And then wake up at 4:20 the next morning and do it all over again.
Yeah, it was smarter for me. Like, I definitely was race mode. Like, from doing road racing and short track mountain bike racing. Like, I definitely had, like, I need to be pounding all the time. Like, that's how I'm gonna do well. So my day would start off, like, same time, like right around 5, and then I'd look at the map and see, like, my stops, kind of like note them on a piece of paper and see where I wanted to get to that day, and then I would just kind of put things away and just go in. I had my time trial bars, and I would just go into, like, full on race mode, and which was nice, but there was some points where I would miss towns and, like, blow right through them, be, like, in such a good race mode, and I would miss food. And there's definitely a few nights where I went to bed hungry. Go to bed hungry and then cold is an awful combination when you're up in the Rocky Mountains. Because we had from my advice, we had the same tent, and it's not the best tent for when wind comes.
No, it's a very breezy tent.
It's a great tent in, like, summer camping, like when you're in, like, Michigan and stuff. Yes. Amazing, but there's a few points where I was camping at like 10,000 feet hungry, and then all of a sudden a wind would come through and swoop up under the fly and hit me. And yeah, there's a few nights where I would lay there for a few hours. I'm like, I'm just not going to sleep. And I would pack it up and then ride at like 3 a.m, like with my dinky bike light that had water damage just kind of flash. I'm like, oh, let's hope that I'm not going to hit a bear here.
So speaking of tents there, I was south of Butte on that watershed divide. Nice campground. There was a concrete outhouse there, and I'm thinking, okay, it's a nice night, 45 degrees. I'm going to camp out right here. I get good and cozy. 2:30 in the morning, the wind picks up, 25, 30 mile an hour wind. It blows right through the tent. It's sucking all the heat out of the tent. So what do? I go sleep in the outhouse.
National forest like bathhouses, like little bathrooms they have are amazing to sleep in. If you ever have a chance, because they're wide enough where you could stretch out in them. Mm-hmm. It's warm and you can dry your stuff out. I slept in,
and they don't have a bad aroma. They smell pretty good.
No, they were. I had an air freshener with me too. I grabbed one at one of the gas stations because I knew I'd be sleeping in a few.
There aren't enough people around to use them and stink them up.
That's right.
I was a little nervous because when I pulled into it, there's still some people camping. I'm like, I'm too tired to set up my tent. Like, there's a bathroom right here. Like, I'm gonna do it. There's a few points, especially it kind of bit me in the butt, and right in Breckenridge, we slept behind a little gas station, and we were so tired, and there's no roads there. Like, it was just kind of the back of it. So we threw out just our sleeping pad and like a sleeping bag out from one other guy, and we decided to sleep for a few hours, and of course, like an hour into it, the sprinklers turn on. So we're like sprinting around out there, and I don't think my down sleeping bag ever got dried for the rest of the race. It still got a weird, funky aroma to it from being soaked for so long, but. It's funny because, like, talking about, like, memories come back and, like, stories start coming back and things I don't remember because, it was such a whirlwind. And it was crazy for me because, like, when I finished the race, my uncle had passed away the last day of the Tour Divide. So, like, that was, like, and I knew he was sick from cancer, too. So that was, like, going through my mind during the race. And then, like, that happened. I finished with, like, my whole family's there. And then we have, like, that kind of deal. So, like, there's no real break to, like, digest it. And then, like, I worked at summer camp and then I start college again. So it's, like, now, like, things are getting to a rhythm again. I can start to, like, digest it and, like, think about, holy crap, what just happened? Like, It's pretty nuts. I'm still pretty flabbergasted that it happened. Like, I forget about it sometimes. Like, people ask me about the summer. I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh shoot, that was pretty amazing.
One thing I'm noticing is there's a bit of a tortoise and a hare kind of dynamic here. Every story Dylan tells is like, oh, I tried to rush too much. Yeah. And then every story Paul tells is, I just took my time and then I just did this.
Paul still did a good tempo. I mean, he was doing 80 miles a day.
Okay, if you put time on task, I was 93 miles a day.
That's pretty impressive for the Divide.
But I had taken 3 days off. I had taken two rest days I built in, and also 1 day of bike repairs. Yeah. So if you nail it, the time on task, 93. If you do the average, I did 82 and a half.
Yeah, I did 120.
And my longest I did was 180.
Yeah, I think my longest was 170 something, which is not fun. I did not enjoy that day at all. Shortest day was maybe like 80 or something. I was pretty bummed. I was not. Then I tried to throw my bike again.
So you just mentioned bike repairs.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because your bike is the thing you're most reliant on. Because if your bike breaks, then you're hiking. You're hiking
done,
the Continental Divide.
What I had done is
worst case scenario.
When I bought my bike, I bought a Trek Stash 5, fantastic bike, 27 pounds out the box, rigid frame, beautiful. And I got it pimped out with the Jonesy bars and a nice padded seat and 12 psi in the tires. It was great, frame bags and this and that. But the gearing was 32 tooth front sprocket, 36 tooth back sprocket. That worked pretty good for maybe the first day and a half.
First 100 miles, maybe.
Yeah. After Elkford, then it was grinders, So anyways, when I got to Whitefish, they did a front sprocket change. They put a 30 tooth on the front. That made it better for the mountains. But it wasn't good enough for me. So when I got to Helena, I spent the day in their shop, and they put a 26 front and a 42 on the back for me. As they said, good rock climbing gears. So that was my repair. And that was fantastic. I could grind up those 6% grades for miles and miles and miles and miles.
So you were able to go to bike shops along the way to do your repairs.
There were bike shops in Whitefish,
Steamboat,
Helena, Butte, Steamboat, Breckenridge, Silver City.
Yes, the Breckenridge is Silver City.
Salida, Colorado.
Salida Silver City stretch is. If you have I had bike issues there. If you have a bike issue there, it's like 50-50 if you're going to make it.
Del Norte, California, Colorado. They got a bike shop too.
I had the pedal breakdown and was able to get to Whitefish to get new pedals, but riding on flat pedals with clipless shoes is a disaster because you're on metal and your feet are ice skating everywhere and you can't get any good leverage. And then my cassette on my rear wheel is coming loose. I still don't know how that happens. But there's no shop to tighten that for like a good 800 miles. So I was like missing shifts for a long time and just wearing stuff out. And then everything was wearing down pretty fast on my bike. And then I got to Abiquiu, New Mexico, and there's a brutal like slick rock, like sandy climb. It's gorgeous, but it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I went over that and I noticed I could hear the hissing from like one of my tires. And at that point I realized my mini pump was broken. Like the seals on it weren't like working anymore. The tube I had was like 50-50 if it's going to work. Like I don't know if I want to go through that effort. So I just went down the descent out of that big climb and hit a cattle guard pretty head on. And there was a nasty cattle guard and it just instant flat. And I stuffed some stuff into my tire. I opened it up, stuffed some like leaves and stuff in it because I've done it before. And there's no leaves up there. There's like some pine needles
pine needles,
that's it. And so I started walking, and of course that's when like a crazy New Mexico monsoon storm comes in. Those are terrifying, especially when we're high up in the mountains. Like it was nuts, and there's of course huge black cows like walking through the forest. So, like you think there's a black bear every 5 seconds, like a massive one right in front. And that happened a lot during the race.
These bears keep mooing.
Yeah. Oh no, the cows were awful. Like we'll get into that. I hate cows now, but like I pushing through there, and that was brutal because I was walking for a good 10 miles. And that's when I called my parents and they said like this kind of ignored my calls. Knew I had to keep on pushing, but it was also just immensely exhausting because where I was at on the route is north of where my dad and my uncle grew up and my whole family grew up. So I had like that mentally like wearing on my mind, like shoot, like this is like some emotional stuff. Like this is hard, like and this is not fun right now. And luckily, another crazy lucky thing, like I met a couple from England who was touring the route from the south to the north. and they had some CO2 stuff that I was able to shoot into the tire just enough to get me to the next town. And luckily I ran into another racer who helped me out a little bit. That was the other stretch where I really thought, like, I'm done. Like, there's no way I'm going to finish this, right? And that was super frustrating because I'm like, I'm in the last state. I have home state, home advantage, home field advantage. Like, I know this area well. Like, yes. I cannot quit right in this town that I know. Like, that's awful. So
they'll put your picture up in the gas station as the failure.
I remember rolling into town being like, shoot, like, I've been here before in my life, and I can't quit the race now. Like, I mean, I still, like, I think about people who've quit, and, like, there's somebody who quit 100 miles from the finish. Like, that's I don't even think about that. That's so hard. Like,
the general rule is if once you make it out of Montana, you got the Tour Divide done. Yeah, that's the general rule.
This year, if the rain I hit, because I hit it about a week before Paul did in New Mexico, and we hit heavy monsoon rains. And in New Mexico, whenever they get heavy rains, the caliche mud comes out. So, like, the really, really dirt roads, really rough roads, just turns to the nastiest peanut butter, stickiest mud you could think of. So it clogs your bike instantly. That stretch broke a lot of people, broke a lot of bikes too. Like, it was, I still love New Mexico, so I got a special place in my heart for it, but that scarred me a little bit for parts of it because it was so hard, so much mud.
So a lot of the repairs you said you could do in shops. What did you carry with you in case you needed to do any kind of repairs?
Extra chain links if I broke a chain, which I used once. 2 extra sets of brake pads, which I was able to replace on my own during the race. And then I just had a big multi-tool. I had a Leatherman too, and that helped pulling thorns out of tires. That happened a few times.
I had a spare shifting cable and extra batteries for your lights and tire patch kit, tire tools.
I had duct tape. Duct tape helped a lot.
Duct tape, needle and thread if you had to sew a tire up.
Together. Yeah.
We had both almost the same equipment there.
Yeah.
Me and another guy, James from Fort Worth, Texas, we were riding, and he blew out his tire, and he blew it out on the sidewall, and there was a hole big enough you could stick your pinky through there. And he was tubeless. And he said, Paul, now what do we do?
And you said, I have a bike that works. I don't see the problem.
I don't care, no. So I said, you got a tire patch kit? He says, no. I said, well, I do. So we popped off his tire. We put a patch on the inside. He threw a tube in there. We pumped it up. And I think the nearest bike shop for him without going backwards on the route was Steamboat Springs. So he ran that tire like 500 miles patched.
There's something to be said for the whole Tour Divide. You definitely get into a family during the race because you see other people. You don't ride with the same person all the time. You slingshot behind people. You meet new people all the time, and
you leapfrog them.
You realize what you're doing together, and that like camaraderie, like helping each other out, is huge. I mean, I rode this guy Ricky from New Jersey. He was a few years older than me. He was like 22, 21. His birthday was during the race, and we rode together for a while. It was great to have somebody like to help you out with situations. And besides, I had to leave him at one point. Like, and then side note, when on his birthday, we hit the mud of New Mexico, and his bike jammed way worse than mine. And I was still able to pedal, and I looked at him like, "It's been great riding with you, Ricky. Like, I gotta finish this thing."
Loyalty only lasts so long.
Once he stopped, I'm like, "There's nothing I can do, Ricky. Like, it's been great." And I was really lucky enough because I was about 2 or 3 days before the finish, and I was lucky enough once I finished and I was driving back with my family, I saw him riding into the finish a few hours later. I was able to stop and like congratulate him, give him a big hug, and then apologize for leaving him on his birthday in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico.
Yeah. That's where in the Journey movie, and then there was one.
And then that's what. I felt pretty bad for a while, but he got through it. I was just glad to hear he got through it. I remember like stopping in gas stations and seeing riders come in, like, "Have you seen Ricky?" He's like, "Oh, he's back there." I'm like, "Thank God," because I would have felt so bad if he had pulled the plug there. Like,
oh no, he died back there. It's all your fault.
No, that's what was going through my mind. I'm like, oh man, like I was leaving him, like this is kind of, we're really in the middle of nowhere and the storm's getting worse, and like he can't pedal. I'm like, oh gosh, it's been great. You're fun to ride with, Ricky. Like, no, was a good riding partner. It was fun to have somebody my age ride with.
It's interesting that you mentioned the camaraderie because for hiking trails, it's obvious that happens because you're camping with people and you can walk together side by side. But that's much harder to do on a bike. Yeah. So how does that camaraderie come together? Is it mostly in the campgrounds?
Well, no, because normally I camp by myself almost every night.
I camp by myself. I think I only split a room 2 nights. I split rooms with
whenever
guys,
I stay in a hotel, I split rooms.
And there were 2 nights that I camped with people. Otherwise, I camped by myself. Camaraderie for me was you just meet people on the trail. If that person's northbound, I'm southbound, he's northbound, we'd stop and talk for 3 minutes. Where's the nearest water? What to expect, and vice versa. The camaraderie would be just maybe if you got somebody who will go at a similar pace to you, you can ride with them for 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe a day, maybe 2 days.
Yeah,
you know, you just kind of hit and miss people on the way.
Yeah, I think the max I rode with somebody was Ricky, and we rode we first rode with each other in Wyoming, and then kind of missed past a little bit, then met up again in Colorado, then missed past a little bit. So like probably 5 days I was the most I rode with him, but probably for like 75% I was by myself. I had a good group of these guys from David from the Canary Islands. I rode with him for a little bit. And all these guys were like double my age. So they thought I was hilarious riding with me. They were like laughing at me, and they're fun. I mean, I definitely made some lifelong friends. Like, I mean, David, he's invited me out to the Canary Islands to go biking out there. He wants to do a bike packing trip to New Zealand with a few of the guys who we kind of rode together. There's a guy, Russell, from Austin, who I rode with for a while, who helped me with bike issues. We split a hotel room in Abiquiu, like just super nice guys who I think they felt bad for me at some points because I was definitely hurting. I definitely was having some bike issues when I met them in New Mexico and was like struggling to keep up, but I think my jokes like made them like me, like they let me stay with them. But no, I mean, I met some amazing people. There's a couple who did it on a tandem who I rode with for a very long time.
They were riding a tandem bike?
And they did it real fast. They finished like about 20 minutes before me. Yeah, they're someone to mess with. They're nuts. They're super fast. They were an inspiration. They were crazy. I'm here. I'll make sure I get their names right. 'Cause they were honestly, they were great. Because they were like, I ran into them in the start in like the second day in, we were hitting really bad mud, and they were amazing, like helping me out. And like they had crazy issues because they have a belt drive on there. So anytime mud gets into a belt drive, it hops it off, and they had to get off and like carry their tandem through the mud. And then I ran to them later on in Colorado and New Mexico, and it's like having like a mom and dad out there, kind of just like talking to them and riding with them. And Laura and Chris, they were some of the nicest people I've ever met. We shared a cabin in Atlantic City, Wyoming. If you ever want to have a crazy time, go to Atlantic City, Wyoming. There's 20 cabins maybe, and then just a raging bar.
Yeah, when I was in Atlantic City, it was on a Sunday night, and everything was full. So I went to the restaurant there, had a burger loaded up with water. Water wasn't the best, and I went another 15 miles out, and I camped out on the Great Basin that night.
See, like I rolled into it's the typical old mining town from like 1800s, very typical Western town. I rolled up to the little saloon. Like, it was a saloon. It had like swing doors. I remember like walking through, and I felt like I was in a Western because everyone got quiet, and like I felt like I heard a record scratch, like the music, the piano stopped playing, and everyone like looked at this disgusting, smelly bag of dirt all over my face. Like,
were people playing poker?
It was like it felt like I stepped back 100 years in time, and they were super nice. This guy would rent out a cabin in town. He was super cool. That was fun. I spent a long time there. I was with a guy from England, Ian. We were riding together. He was in his 60s, and he was a pretty funny guy. But we were hanging out in this bar, and it was really funny there being at this old British guy, and then in this very stereotypical Western bar where half the people I really couldn't understand what they're saying, and I was trying to like listen in. I'm like, I need to like take a mental snapshot of this. This is a bizarre experience right now.
The camaraderie that you mentioned, it kind of comes up a lot talking to people that do long distance hiking, bike packing trips, things like this. Like I think a lot of people think like, oh, we're going to go out to the outdoors, get away from people, be by ourselves. But it seems like everyone I ever talk to, they come back and then they just speak about how great all the people they met were.
Oh man,
there were some great people. In fact, there's one lady there. Her name was Barbara Nye. She was about 35 miles north and west of Helena, Montana. She lives right on the Tour Divide route. She's a homeowner there, and she has a cabin. Coincidentally, Dylan and I spent the night in that cabin, but on different nights. And the night I was there was 4 of us that crashed in her cabin. Barbara put out fresh chicken sandwiches, bowls of cherries, and chips, and fresh well water.
Yeah. Oh, she was amazing for us, too.
I looked at her. I said, Barbara, you are an angel. You are totally an angel. I mean, she was probably one of the most memorable people that she catered to us, and we offered money for food and lodging. She wouldn't accept it.
She had llamas.
She had llamas in her yard that would keep away the grizzly bears. So
wait, grizzlies are afraid of llamas? Is that the secret?
They don't mess with them. Apparently, she was saying that. Like, they're like in the mountains. Like they're just like the llamas don't get messed with. That was bizarre. I came around this fast turn, all of a sudden there's a cabin. There's llamas everywhere. But no, some of the nicest people. I mean, I met somebody. I didn't catch his name, but I was in the red desert of Wyoming before you get into the Great Basin. It's gorgeous, but very exposed and very hot. And I was just on the side of the road with my bike underneath a rock, trying to like stay out of the shade for a little bit. And this guy rolls up in a beat up pickup truck, gets out. He said he like lived there his whole life. He had a cool like Hawaiian like aloha hat, and he looked like he was such a nice guy. And he had like a huge gallon jug of water. And he's like, oh yeah, I like come around here to find you crazy bikers or hikers and have water with me. I'm like, that's amazing.
Oh, there was one guy there when I was in Abiquiu, south of Abiquiu, up in those mountains at 10,300 feet. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, nice sunny afternoon, 80 degrees. A vehicle pulls up behind me. And I look back, and it's this big-ass Chevy Suburban. It says, Bureau of Land Management, Federal Law Enforcement Officer. A young guy, 35 years old, gets out, and I mean, he's got 2 handguns, he's got bear spray, he's got clips, he's got K9 in the back. I mean, he's ready to kick some ass. So he stops, and he does a wellness check on me. He says, what are you up to? And I tell him, what I'm doing, and next thing he says, what part of Canada are you from? I says, I says, it's the accent, isn't it? He said, yeah. I said, well, no, I'm actually from the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. I'm a Yooper.
He's like, well, that's basically Canada.
Almost, yeah.
We're pretty close.
Pretty close, about that far away. So anyways, he looks at me, he says, would you like some ice? I said, yes. He goes in the back there next to his K9, he pulls out ice, he puts ice in my Camelback. He said, would you like some iced coffee? I says, you betcha. So here he is. He shares his Starbucks iced coffee with me. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 10,300 feet up in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. 2 days. That was the only person I seen in 2 days. So there's some fantastic, memorable people out there.
Yeah, that's honestly more than the scenery and like the challenge of the people I met was something I'll keep with me forever. Because I remember those people more than anything else in the race.
Yeah.
Like I remember in Helena, somebody bought me a pizza. And I didn't know who it was, but it came with the person, like the waiter brought me a pizza and it had donuts, like Trail Magic. That was super memorable, meeting all the people. And I was just, there's people I've met doing the race and like who I know I'll probably be in touch with for the rest of my life. there's these 3 friends from Missouri. They are just a few years older than me, in their like mid-20s, who I rode with for a while, and they were amazing. They're super goofy and fun to ride with, and I'm sure I'm still keep in touch with them today, and I can't wait to go out and ride with those guys soon.
We've kind of talked about it a fair amount already, but to just go a little deeper into this, so we started out kind of talking about all the miserable, terrible things you have to put up with, and then all these great people that you meet.
Yeah.
So in the end, what do you both kind of feel like you got from doing this? Like, what did you take away from it?
Well, I guess what I took away from it is I've seen places, in the Rocky Mountains that are not on any tourist map. And what I love the solitude of being up in the mountains by myself, riding with the wind in your face and the wind at your back, in the sun, in the rain. As I tell people, I loved every minute of every day on the trail, even when I was miserable.
That's a good way to put
and
it.
I walked away with a feeling of confidence and a feeling of, yes, it's a long race. It's grueling. It's brutal. But I was tough enough to do it. I did conquer the Tour Divide.
I'm still trying to think about what I got from I know I know that I could push past it. That was great to find like my limit and be like, oh, I can go harder than this, which was great for me. That was really fun to figure that out. But I think big thing was just being by myself, which I've always been more of an introverted person. Like, so that was like just seeing like, oh, I could really be by myself for a while. And then I think a big thing for me was doing that, reaching out and like talking to people and getting help when I need it. Because I've been pretty bad. Like whenever I've done bike touring in the UP, like people offer like food or something, like, no, I'm fine, I got this, like I can do this. And I'll like 10 minutes later be like, that was the stupidest decision you have ever made. So like getting that like ego out pretty fast. You get that kicked out of you within the first like 20 miles, that like there's no ego on the Tour Divide. You have an ego, you're not going to finish the race.
Yeah, speaking of which, ego, one guy, when I was going up Union Pass in Wyoming, one guy stopped and offered me water. I turned him down. He drove away. 30 seconds later, I'm thinking, Paul, why did you do that? You never turned down water. Yeah. So from that point on, somebody offered water. How much? Fill me up.
I mean, it was great, like just knowing I could prepare for something that big and do like raise the money for it and like inspire other people to do it. It was a great thing. I mean, like whenever I did the presentation, like Paul got inspired to like more inspired and like to go do it. I mean, that was a great boost for me. Like, oh crap, like this is something really special to do. And then it's inspired more other rides. Like this summer, I'm planning a ride around Lake Superior, doing an oral history of the Great Lakes. So in each small town we stop at, I'm doing with 2 other people, we're going to kind of record stories about what it's like to live like on Lake Superior, the history of it, like environmental impacts with it. And so it's inspired more socially active bike tours. And then, of course, it's leading up to 2018. I want to do the Divide again and do it faster and then ride across the world. I don't know. It's like, it's definitely boosted me into just like seeing how far I can push myself and my bike, which is fun, exciting. Because I know if I just conquered the hardest mountain bike race in the world, like, shit, I could do a lot more. So like, I could find some other big things to go accomplish.
So you mentioned raising money, and Paul said it was the most expensive free race he did. And you said you don't want to think about the money.
Man,
so let's talk about it now.
Okay, I guess for me, I had to gear up. I bought a bike originally, and I got faulty data on the weight from the vendor. And when I dressed out the bike was tipping 60 pounds without food or water.
Ugh, that's so heavy.
So 2 days before the race, I run down to another bike shop in town, and I bought the Trek Stash 5, which was 10 pounds lighter. I got $4,000 worth of bicycles right off the bat. And then there were some hotel rooms, and then there was lodging, and my wife flew down to Albuquerque to pick me up at the finish line. So there's airfare, rent a car, a little more lodging, and this and that. So when it comes down to it, it cost me about $2.35 a mile. For a free race.
Yeah, you told me.
Not too bad. It was an adventure. It was worth every penny of it.
Oh, yeah. Worth every penny. But So I went into it because, going through college, I'm much tighter, very tight budget. So, and I wasn't going to let that stop me. So I created, a crowdfunding thing. But a big side kind of mission of the Divide was I was raising money for colorectal cancer, which my dad had. So I was kind of doing that simultaneously, helping me raise money to actually do this thing. And also half it's going to be donated to this colorectal cancer. And that worked amazingly well. I was able to get all the money I needed for the race. Plus I raised $4,500 for colorectal cancer research. And then we did the Tour Divide presentation I did in May, and I was able to get some more money from the community, from the Marquette community. I was able to make it work. It was tight though. Food was really, really expensive. I did not food is the biggest expense. You don't realize how much especially when you roll into town, you're hungry. That's a bad idea.
And you're probably needing twice as much food as you normally would,
I was
right?
burning probably 10,000 calories a day, and I was not eating even close to that because you can't. There's no way. You have to be eating nonstop, and which is really hard to do when you're on some of the roughest roads in North America. It's not an easy accomplishment. So by the end of it, I knew what food cheap I could buy, and that would give me enough energy. Tortillas and honey was my big go-to. Getting tons of tortillas, 20 or 30 tortillas, and just keep those in my bag, and then big bunch of honey on them. That was my meal for a long stretch in the end. But debating if you're going to go to a restaurant and maybe save a little bit of money if you go to the gas station, those are things I was considering, which is if you didn't have that, it would be a big wait. But that would take me a little bit longer. I would sit there and be shoot, I know I'm probably fine with money, but I don't want to I don't want to get to northern New Mexico and be well, everything's going on to maxing out the credit card now.
Cactuses here on out.
Yeah, no,
roadkill.
I definitely got some. I got some berries at some point. I found some blueberries in Colorado and got lucky there and was able to eat a little bit. But a lot of kindness from people gave me food. That was a big thing too. If I was hungry, it was all my fault of either grabbing the wrong food or just thinking I can make this 40-mile stretch with this Cliff Bar and some trail mix. I got that, and then 10 miles later being well, those are gone, so this is gonna suck. That happened a lot. Just rookie mistakes. The people who've done it before, because there's people I rode with who've done it 3 or 4 times, and they were flying ahead of me, and but I was going at a much faster pace, but they knew how to eat the food right, how to time things right, and I would blow past them, get to the next town, and then they would just kind of mosey on by me, and then I'd be frantically trying to eat food.
Tortoise and hare again.
Yeah, I know. That's what I think I honestly could have done it in 20 days if I had been a little bit better about eating and pacing myself a little bit better, but. For my first time ever doing the Tour Divide and any bike packing experience, for the youngest finisher this year, I was pretty happy about that too, and pounding out in a pretty respectable time, 22 days. That was my goal was 21, so 3 weeks. I'm pretty stoked about that.
As far as finishers, you were probably the 500th and 25th finisher, maybe?
Overall, since the race has started, and then my time was from the first race, I think my time was the fastest time from when they first did the race. Now it's Mike Hall just destroyed it this year. He didn't really sleep. I don't know how that man when I heard, it was kind of demoralizing when I heard he had finished and we were still just getting to New Mexico and we're that jerk.
Well, hey, at least you were in New Mexico. You could have been up in Montana.
I could have been somewhere. I remember we were we had the little spot tracker. We had a little tracker on all of us. So you could see where we were on the route. And when I would get data, I can bring it up on my phone and we would see where people were, which is great for mental. Be oh, there's somebody 10 miles in front of me. I can meet up with somebody and talk to somebody about what the hell we just went through, because it was nice because some of the stretch were so hard that you're I don't think that just happens. That was horrendous. I need to talk to somebody about this. That was life-changing how hard that ATV trail was or how cold that got. It's great to have somebody to talk. Man, I couldn't imagine people who first did that really by yourself. that's what I want to do next, is to kind of map out my own huge ride so I can like really like get out there and with no maps and kind of really experience it. But maybe 2 years from now, I don't know. I've got a timeline of big events that I want to check off.
You just mentioned maps. What about navigation? Was it easy or was it difficult?
If you followed your GPS program, you download your GPS into your handheld device, and if you follow that and check it regularly, zoom in to a real tight clearances there, you do pretty good.
Yeah.
But there were opportunities. In fact, I talked to 2 guys who made the rookie mistakes where their GPS route color was very similar to the highway colors on their GPS, and they missed a turn. One guy went 12 and a half miles following the road too far. He had to come back 12 and a half miles, and then he found the route, and then he comes on. And that happened to yet some other guys there. They just missed it. And, they're following a road where they should have turned 5 miles ago. Follow your GPS. It was easy.
Yeah,
you could use your maps for reference.
Each year there's like a few alternate routes because they have to change it sometimes for forest fires. You have to kind of change the route a little bit. If there's really bad roads, they have different alternates you can take, and they let you know. It's not an organized race. Like there's no person who's in charge giving all the information. It's kind of like forum based, so you just hear from other riders about this is the changes that are coming, and nobody knows really who it comes from, but like those are the changes that come your way. The maps, like they have the Adventure Cycling Association map the route. They're amazing maps. They're fun to look at, but they don't follow the exact route that we race. So you have to kind of take the information you get from that with a grain of salt and like really trust the GPS and the GPX route that you downloaded and follow that, because I mean those ones were great. The maps, they're huge too, so they're kind of a pain to pull out. Like I pull them out when I'm about to go to bed. Like they're not the best for reading, but when you pull out like the little elevation grades, like that's amazing stuff. And like some of the information on it's amazing. It shows like where people are have hotels for you to stay at, or like where houses are opened up to bikers coming through, special food, special water holes. So some of the information is really good, but the route's a little bit outdated.
Do you think that the ubiquity of GPS has maybe made up some of that time? Like if people were people originally doing it off of maps prior to GPS?
Oh, it made it way faster, I'm sure. Oh yeah, because you can see when like the GPS started getting more prevalent, the time dropped a lot by like a few days, which is really hard to do because you can just like look on it and just follow the line. Right. Super easy. And like I lost them on the first day, another rookie mistake, but I made cue cards where it tells me each turn to make, but even those, Paul, you didn't even use those really, did you?
I didn't use them because I found out early on that they're called cue sheets. And they got like stars where there's a route change. Well, depending upon the calibration of the person who made the cue sheet and the calibration of your speedometer, you could be off by maybe a mile, maybe 2 miles, maybe 3 miles. Yeah. So if you go by your speedometer and it says left turn at mile 60, you're at mile 60 and you look, there's no place to turn. Should I have turned back at mile 59? Right. Or is there an intersection at mile 61? So, I use the cue sheets for reference for lodging and for services, for food and water. Yeah. And after I got 500-600 miles into them, I think I only took them out once.
Yeah, the water, there's a few points, because, I mean, it's really tough in Wyoming and New Mexico, especially with water. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, and what gets people the most, and what they forget about. I mean, the maps are good about telling you where wells are, but, like, you're not sure if that well's going to be there anymore. And that hit me pretty bad a few times where I had, like, a few gulps of water. I'm like, let's hope this like big like well has, and I go up and it's dry, and so like there's a few points where I had to just find a creek and like just pretend that I'm getting amazing spring water. I'm dropping a ton of iodine, which tasted awful. So like that, man, water's a butt kicker on the divide.
Yeah, there are places on the route like the Great Basin in Wyoming. It's 110 miles, no
hell.
No water sources, and also New Mexico, you can. Pie Town to Beaverhead Ranger Station, that's like 110 miles. Nothing. No water sources.
If you're lucky, like I was lucky it was raining and I saw a little stream forming, but I didn't trust it much. I didn't take water, but like New Mexico, like if I'd hit it a week earlier, it would have been like 110 degrees, and that would have been hellish. Like it was 80 for me, which was super nice. Like I mean, the rain still like sucked because I had no rain. I had lost my rain jacket earlier in the race. I lost quite a few things. So if you find a cool rain jacket somewhere out Breckenridge on the Golden Dust Trail, please send it to me. I missed that rain jacket. But
the only thing I lost is a pair of underwear.
Really?
I think I had them on my handlebars drawing, and I hit a bump or something, or I lost contact with them. So here I am. I'm in Helena buying at a store there, and Well, the lady asked me, she said, Paul, she says, what size underwear do you wear? Give me a minute. I call my wife. Hey, what size underwear do I wear? Large or mediums?
Yeah, I mean, I lost my rain jacket. I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like, I'm here in New Mexico. I know New Mexico. I think I've seen it rain there 5 times maybe. And of course, like, seconds after I cross the border, like a hellish thunderstorm starts. Like, I have a few trash bags I'm trying to wrap myself with. Yeah, it was something interesting. I mean, that's what I'm excited to do it again. I want to find that rain jacket. That's really why I'm doing it in 2018 is to find my yellow Patagonia rain jacket.
That is going to be one disgusting rain jacket if you find it.
Okay.
But yeah, let's get you to go ahead now that we've taken our break and eaten all the delicious snacks you gave us. Go ahead and you say you want to share a story about what your last day on the trail was like.
Yeah, it was my last day on the trail. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. I was on trail by 5:10, 5:15, and I was leaving Lower Black...
So you were running late.
I was running late, 10 minutes late. And I was leaving Lower Black Canyon campground, and this is still up in the Gila Mountains north of Silver City, about 55 miles north of Silver City, New Mexico. And my goal was to get to Silver City. But it was like 3 miles switchbacks uphill, 2 miles plateau, 3 miles down, 3 miles up, flat, down, blah, blah, 3 times. Finally, I get to Silver City, and it's like 1:30 in the afternoon. And I'm thinking it's a little bit too early to quit. 91 degrees outside. And I checked the weather. I had a northwest wind, which would have been a tailwind. So I loaded up at the local Walmart, a couple of subs, some trail mix, Snickers bars, and Danish pastries and water. Yeah. I'm going out in the desert. I pack in 8 liters of water now. So I'm going to make my goal to Separ, which was, I think, another 60, 70 miles away. I jump on the bike. I leave Silver City, and I'm heading south to Separ. I get to Separ 8 o'clock at night, sunset. I still feel pretty good, and I look at the sign, and the sign says, Antelope Wells, 65 miles. I'm thinking, I wonder. So I start heading down into the darkness. And as I'm riding down the 2-lane blacktop road, no traffic on it, I see tarantulas, rattlesnakes, these 6-inch long millipedes. They're about the size of your pinky, 6 inches long. They got like 1 million legs on each side. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm going to keep on going. So I pull in at a little small intersection town called Hytinen. And I'm sitting on those toilets that were just on the edge of town. Yeah. There are 2 toilets there.
Cheetah's weird.
So I'm sitting on the toilet at 11:30 at night, and I'm eating my Walmart sub and my trail mix and Snickers for dessert. And I look at my back tire, and I got a slow leak. That stand sealant is starting to spray out the bead, and it's going like all over the place. I'm thinking, oh, shoot. What do I got now? Flat tire, of course. I picked up a thorn. So I started thinking, tomorrow it's going to be 104 degrees. Right now it's 70. I have a tailwind right now. I'm having a flat tire. I'm not sleeping with tarantulas, rattlesnakes, and millipedes. And I said, no way, I'm sharing my tent with them. So I pump up the bike tire, and I figured, okay, if I pump it up every 10 miles, I don't want to change a flat in the middle of the night. So I had 45 miles to go to Antelope Wells. In that 45 miles, I get stopped by the U.S. Border Patrol 3 times. They were inquiring me what I was doing. And I'm saying, I'm doing the Tour Divide. I'm going to Antelope Wells. And they said, well, there's nobody there. I said, but that's the finish line. So I just keep on plugging along another 15 miles. Another U.S. Border Patrol agent stops me. He interviews me. And I go a little bit more, and I see these Border Patrol trucks. They're parked alongside the roads, and their headlights are panning out over the desert. And they're looking for, somebody illegally crossing, I guess. Well, ultimately, I get to Antelope Wells at 4:36 in the morning. That was after 23 hours of clock time and 20 and a half hours of spin. I went 180 miles that day. And I got to Antelope Wells. There was no CNN. There was no Lester Holt. It was me and a locked gate. So I just took a selfie of myself at the locked gate. I laid out my pad in the best lit area as I possibly could. I put on my rain gear, and I crashed for 3 hours. And then my wife showed up about 4 hours afterwards. She showed up about 10:30 in the morning, gave me a ride back to Albuquerque. So that was my day. Anticlimactic, you know. I figured I'm going to get to the finish line and rah, rah, rah. You're just me.
That's a great final day.
That's got to feel a little sad when you show up and you're like, I did it. I did all these things. There's nothing to demarcate.
Yeah. You know, like I seen videos online afterwards, and I see Konan from Columbus, Ohio. He finishes with 2 other guys.
He finishes right behind me, and there's like a party. Which is super
there's
rare.
Party. I mean, there's everybody.
Everyone had beer out. It was a great time.
And there I am, 4:30 in the morning, all by myself. Rattlesnakes, tarantulas.
Hey, at least you avoided arrest by the Border Patrol.
That's true. At least I had a very convincing story, and there wasn't too much to search. I mean, 3 bags on the bike in my backpack. That was it.
I had a harder time getting into the U.S. from Canada, man.
But you know what?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. The border crossing there, like, heard things about that the Roosevelt crossing is tricky. Like that, like even if you're a citizen, like they're not friendly about you crossing over at all. So we like rolled up and they're instantly yelling at us about turning our lights off, like turning everything off, and like they let me go. Kind of. They were very suspicious. Like, I don't think they trusted any of us. But this one guy, Mark, talked back a little bit, and they like searched his whole bike, like took everything off, like went through his whole bike. But they were pretty hard. They had one person I heard the next day was detained there for a whole afternoon just because they didn't trust his bear spray. But that was a hard board. That was a tricky board, and that was because we hit it. Also, we probably hit it when they were like not in a good mood because we hit it at 3 a.m.
Are they worried you're smuggling drugs on a bicycle?
There's nothing there. There's nothing north of the border. Like literally, it's like the most remote section I think of the divide because you don't see a you leave you don't see a town for like 150 miles, and like you're in the middle of grizzly country, so there's nothing. It's a bizarre area. It's funny because the border with the U.S. is literally mountains, so you like come out and also you hit the plains of like Montana.
When I did the border crossing, it was about 4:30 on a Sunday afternoon, and I've gotten traffic with my bike, and I'm standing there, and next car advances, and I advance on my bike. I'm in traffic, car in front of me, car behind me. Finally, I'm there I get the red light. I get the green light. I pedal 70 feet forward. I stop, pull out my passport, my driver's license. He asked me to form questions on what I was going to do. And he looked at it and says, yeah, okay, good, you're good. Bam, off I go. So for me, it was fairly uneventful, fortunately.
That's because they looked at this young guy and they thought, oh, he's up to no good.
Sketchy. I probably was smiling too much and waving to him. Like, I noticed the Midwestern charm was lost on quite a few people on the divide sometimes.
Well, maybe it was my Canadian accent there.
So let's talk about expectations. Let's talk about before you did it, what you expected, and then what you found out to be the reality afterwards.
Before, I expected to be riding all the time and not thinking. I guess I didn't think about the mental aspect. I thought like it's gonna be hard. I'm gonna see amazing things, but like I'll have to ride my bike. That's all I have to do. Like I have no other responsibilities than to ride my bike. So like it'll be hard, but like I've got this. And then I also had no expectations of meeting anybody, or I had no expectations of really like remembering some of the places. Like I knew I would go out there and see amazing things, meet amazing people. I really want to just accomplish it as a whole. Like say like I rode my bike like across the Rocky Mountains or down the Rocky Mountains, but that totally turned itself on its head after the race. Like, I mean, the thing I remember the most is the people, and that I did not expect to make any, like, I knew I would meet some cool people and ride with them for a little bit, but like making friends like that, I did not expect that at all. That was a huge change. And then I expected that I would lose weight. I expected I would lose like 5 pounds. I did not expect 25 pounds. I looked scary skinny by the time I finished. I mean, I started the race at 160 and finished it like in the 130s, and I looked pretty terrifyingly skinny for a long time. And I don't think my mom was super psyched when she saw me down there to see how skinny I got. And that was just like from riding really hard and having a fast metabolism in general, but then not eating nearly as much as I need to. And that expectation, that was a big one too. Like I honestly expected, I also thought I was going to get in amazing shape, like get really ripped and get really, really beat. I just got really skinny and everything. I didn't really gain much muscle mass. I just like kind of lost everything. So like, I mean, I even lost like leg mass. Like honestly, when you're riding so consistently for like so long, like your body just gets used to that after 3 weeks. So like all that kind of muscle tone goes down. So I have to kind of start up from scratch and like build up all that speed and strength.
So you changed your base level where your body thought its base was.
Yeah.
Moved.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. My expectations here, I set goals. I wanted to do it in 30 days. I did it in 32 days, 20 hours, 36 minutes. That's close. I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't realize how hard the vertical in Montana would be, and also how strenuous the first 200 miles of New Mexico would be. Those are two that I just could not expect. I just thought, it's going to be a lot of climbing, but that was just totally brutal, both of those sections. I met a lot of people on the way. Casual 5-minute conversations up to biking with people for hours. And there's some really, really, really nice people that I didn't expect to meet. I thought I would be alone a lot, which I was, and I was good with that. I figured I would lose weight. I gained 7 pounds.
Oh, that's quite a difference.
Yeah, but what I did is I was water heavy, I was food heavy, and I didn't want to cramp up. So whenever I ate. I expected to lose weight, and I didn't. And probably what really helped me out a lot is I listened to my body. I didn't push myself beyond 80%.
Yeah, it was like 100 all the time, I think.
But and also it reinforced on that this game for me was 70% mental, 15% physical, and 15% luck.
Yeah, luck's huge.
Luck as in weather or mechanical breakdown.
Whether a guy has pedals
for you. I mean, man, I still crazy lucky. Want to get a tattoo of just a pedal on it. So to remind me how lucky I was.
So once you got done and you go back into regular society and you talk to people who don't even ride a bike ever, much less have any interest in riding a bike 2,700 miles, how do those conversations go? How difficult is it to share this experience with people?
It's pretty hard. The biggest thing I ever got when I got back to Michigan and I was working on summer camp, I was telling people why I was gone for the first 2 weeks of the camp, and I explained to them I can barely ride my bike 5 miles. That was the hands down the biggest question. And I was always telling them it was all mental. Honestly, I'd been riding my bike for the past decade, and I knew how my body could handle this. But it was funny, trying to explain to my parents understood it, but trying to explain to family friends, my grandparents. My grandfather really understood. He liked it. My grandma, I think, was still a little confused by it, and how I did it, and just doesn't. I think people see it as such a huge godly thing. That's impossible. How you can't do that. But it's hard to explain to them. It's manageable if you know how to prepare for it. Know how to mentally get ready for it and get the right gear, you can accomplish it. And it's nice to be kind of used as an inspiring type thing. I do presentations at the university. I just did one kind of about lessons learned on it and things I gained from it. People who probably have no biking experience or no real intention to do anything, see it and be oh crap, maybe I could pull it off. I had some person ask me about the superior bike tour I'm doing. Hey, do you need an extra person? I don't ride much, but I think I could totally accomplish this thing, which is something amazing. I never, back to expectations, I did not expect that coming from it at all, inspiring people after it. So that's pretty big.
Well, when people ask me, how was the Tour Divide, I started off just telling them, it's 2,700 miles through the Rocky Mountains. And they would say, yeah, okay, sure, And then I show them a picture, picture right here on my wall. Mm-hmm. I pull out my camera, I'll show them the picture. I says, this is what 2,700 miles look like. And their eyes get big and their mouth open. They say, wow. He said, I couldn't even do that in a car.
Yeah, no, I'll tell people that, and they'll always, their go-to when I say, I did almost 3,000 miles in the Rockies. They're oh, so mostly road though, right? I'm oh, no, 5 or 10% road.
Yeah.
And a lot of questions, are you okay? Again, checking in with me, you good? Everything okay? Why would you do that to yourself? And then, I'm an outdoor recreation student, so a lot of my friends are like-minded people, doing big hikes, on the Pacific Crest Trail, the Appalachian Trail. So a lot of them get it. But when I go into town more and somebody will bring it up, they'll see my bike and be your bike's seen some shit. I'm yeah, it has. Do you want to hear about it? This bike's got a story to tell. I love that bike. That bike's never going to leave my side.
So if there's someone listening right now and they're thinking, man, this Tour Divide thing sounds pretty interesting, what is the thing you think they need to know, or what piece of advice do you think you need to give them before they take any steps from just hearing this to deciding to try to do that?
I guess what I would say is, first and foremost, if you think you're going to have animal issues, because for the first 2,200 miles, you will be in bear country, whether black bear, grizzly, or cougar. And also a lot of open range cattle. There's elk. There's I seen every animal out there except for the cougar. And the cougar probably had me on the menu 3-4 nights in a row. So if you have any animal issues, you better be able to overcome them.
Yeah.
That's one. A lot of people are unaware of the animal issues, but just get educated. And then from there, it's, do you think you're tough enough? Mentally, are you tough enough to take on such a challenge? Can you be alone for say 20 to 30 days. Can you camp out in the middle of the Colorado Rockies or in the Great Basin of Wyoming alone? Because you can't count on your partner. You may have a partner for a day or two, maybe for a week, or maybe your buddy you signed up with, they drop out. So you got to be able to cope with being alone. And I think if you can do that, and also do your research on your equipment too.
Yeah.
Like you want to travel light but efficient, and also practice. Get your century rides in months and months and months beforehand.
I think the big before, like, if you like hear about it and then before you decide you want to do it, is like to really ask yourself, like, how far am I willing to push myself? Because I mean, that's a big thing, like being able to see, like, I think I could really push myself to that point. And even like, I mean, honestly, I didn't know if I could push myself there, but like, I think what helped me is like just jumping into it a little bit and kind of going in a little bit blind, like honestly helped a little bit. Because if I had thought about it a month more and like really started debating more, I probably would still be thinking about it. At least for my personality, like I had to jump into it and get a game plan and go after that goal. Because I mean, there's no way I could have done it a year ago, but like after I like planned it and really like jumped into it and like set a date. Like when I announced it on Facebook, I knew like, okay, I'm locked in because my friends and family is not going to let me forget about this. That I announced I'm going to do it. I have to do it now. So I think talking to people about it and like telling people you're going to do it, so you have people on your ass kind of about like, you're trained for this, right? Like you're ready for this. Like that helps a lot. I mean, there's something to be said for that, for having people who are watching out for you and making sure you're going to be ready for it.
I think that's great advice.
And one more thing about setting goals. I set goals at 90 miles a day. Time on task, I did 93. And probably my secret for my own completion is I never looked at the finish line till I was in Cuba, New Mexico, which was 500 miles away. I never said I got another 2,000 miles to go. I never said I got this many more miles. I would look at every day like that would be my focus, the next day, the next day, the next day. Then finally, when I got to Cuba, I started doing some math. I'm thinking, hey, I'm only 509 miles away. That's like 6-7 days for me. So
No, I think both of those are great. The idea of don't look at it as 2,700 miles, look at it as 30 separate bike rides or whatever, and to set a goal. What people often do is they say, oh, one day I'm going to do this. Yeah. But if you don't take a step towards doing it, then it's always one day in the future, and it just never happens.
You got to just say, like, I'm going to do this, and then get your game plan. And once you get that game plan, once you're, like, into it, like, I'm just very goal-driven, so it got fun. I mean, like, when you follow that plan and, like, you have these little checkpoints, like, it's very rewarding planning for this, like, thing and building up for it and then doing it well. Like, there's something to be said for that, for doing the process. The process was pretty cool. There's something special. I won't forget, like training and getting all ready for it. That was a big part of it. It was a whole year build up for a 3-week race.
So after you've both completed this, Dylan, you've talked a fair amount about how now you're going to do the Superior Trail and some of the other things you'd like to do. What about you, Paul? What do you want to do next?
Well, my next big adventure, I'm training for the Arrowhead 135 Ultra Marathon. I submitted my resume here in October of this year, and I made the roster for marathon in 2017. They only choose 150 people, and I was one of the lucky recipients. So that's my next big adventure.
That's you should tell more about that race. That race is, that's like next, I need a little bit more to build up to that race.
Well, my mentor, Danny Hill, he did it in 2011. That was the coldest temperature they had up there for that race. It was 42 below zero Fahrenheit. And ultimately, unfortunately, he lost a few toes because of it. He got frostbite. And I was up there at the starting line in 2012, and it was 25 degrees. So the temperature can be varying, but I'm prepared for the cold. I mean, I worked all my whole career outside in the cold. I ski, I fat tire, so it'll just be another daily ride
for me.
Another
day in the life of a Youper.
Another day in the life of a Youper. That Arrowhead 135, that's 135 miles to northern Minnesota, and you have a 60-hour time frame to complete it.
On fat bike.
On a fat bike. You can either walk, ski, or bike, and I choose the bike. But that's my next adventure. And after that, I haven't decided, but I'll find something.
Yeah. It's best to focus on one at a time, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about, for those who may be interested in this, where you guys would recommend they go to get more information, or if they wanted to see what your personal experiences were like, if there are places they could look at pictures or trip reports or anything like that.
The best place for me to start off with is there's a forum on bikepacking.net. And they have tons of forum about bikepacking stuff, just from like very, very basics to like the most experienced people out there. And that's where everyone can comment on it, share tips, things they experienced. that's where I learned a lot of stuff. Bikepacking.com, that's a really great go-to for just general bikepacking routes and like information. Those two were crucial for me going to. And then Facebook was a great, like, find the forums on Facebook of people who are talking about the race. That was a huge help. And then there's a documentary, Ride the Divide, which is just, it's fun.
Yeah,
I watched
2010 version.
I watched it after. I watched it before the race inspired me. I watched it after, and it's take it with a grain of salt because they don't show the whole race. They don't show some of the horrible mental breakdowns.
Yeah, they play some nice guitar music, and they show these people just eating in a nice restaurant. They show them. Oh, I'm tired.
They did have the winner do, like, Matthew Lee, the guy who kind of originated this and kind of like the Godfather of Tour Divide. He was like the main character in it, but it's something good to watch because you get to see the whole trail. Yeah, the forums are big. I mean, man, especially that bikepacking.net one. It's just like a treasure trove. Once you figure out how to work it, it's a little tricky, weird website. But once you figure it out, it's pretty nice.
Well, couple other things too. There is a good Tour Divide website, and they tell you about the race.
Yeah,
they got some photo gallery there. You can also research off of that on what kind of bikes the winning people have, or what is the popular bike for that. And also YouTube. A lot of people have posted their videos on there, like Konan Stevens. He posted one. It's hour 28 minutes, and he nails it.
Yeah, he does a good job.
He really nails it. He nails the highs, the lows, the dry, the wet, the snow, the sleet, the peanut butter mud. He really nailed it with his narration on it. So YouTube would be a great source.
I found Instagram too. I would just go onto it and search like Tour Divide, and like people from either touring it or just doing it would post pictures of like what the route looks like. And it's nice just to have a picture of like, oh, that's the mountains they're looking like. This is kind of the roads they're hitting. Like it's nice to have that in the back of your mind for sure. I even like started following people on Instagram who like were doing it, who had done it before, and then I saw they're doing the race with me too. So that's kind of cool, like making that full circle of like, oh, I saw your picture you posted about Tour Divide 2 years ago, and like now we're doing it together, and like, and I beat you. Like, side note.
Well, also that guy from Banff, Crazy Larry. He's got that website, and that website can really be a link to people who've done it, veterans who have done it, and that's another good resource.
And what about personal resources? Yeah. Is there any that you guys want to share? Because you've got a book, Paul.
Yeah, I've got a book. I'm not that technically savvy yet. I guess if people wanted to talk to me, they could get a hold of me on Facebook, and I will give them my opinion as openly, as honest as what I can provide. And I'll tell them the nuts and bolts of it, and it's Paul Hytinen on Facebook. Just instant message me saying, hey, I'm interested in the TD. What can I provide? I'll spend the time. I'll be more than happy to help anybody out.
And I'm holding your book right here that has all the photos, or a lot of photos, and each day broken down. I'm assuming this is a unique book. This is one of a kind?
Yes, that is my daily journal that I posted on Facebook. My daughters compiled that for me, and they gave it to me as a Father's Day's gift this year. I think it's 58 pages, hardcover. It's from Shutterfly, and it's got some real good killer photos in there.
So if you want to see this book, you have to go to Facebook, become friends with Paul, earn his trust, and then be welcomed into his home, and he will let you look at his book.
Yes.
You gotta come up to Ishpeming, Michigan.
Yeah, you come to Ishpeming there, you'd be more than welcome.
Yeah, I post a lot of stuff to Instagram. Gonda040 is my username. I post a ton of stuff about Tour Divide preparation, about my bike. I've been posting a lot of pictures of it afterwards. And then Facebook too, just Dylan Gonda. I love helping people out with this now. And that's really fun that I can show other people how to do it, kind of become that cornerstone for how to get stuff done. Like that's been a nice role that I've really loved falling into, of kind of helping people out who want to do it.
I have a local following here of people who want to do the divide in maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and they're friends with me on Facebook. And whenever I see an interesting article, whether it be animal issues or bike packing or whatever, I will forward it to them, as a resource, and just give them information and let them educate themselves and make their own decisions. I'm not going to tell anybody to do it or not to do it, but I will definitely help educate.
Are there any final thoughts you'd want to leave people with?
If you take anything away from it, it's that if you want to accomplish that huge mountain, that big challenge, you have to commit to it. Like we talk about, like you have to go 110% into it. You could always say like, oh, I just like maybe someday, or maybe I don't need to do this train thing now. Like it can wait a little bit. Like you need to go full force into it for you to get the most out of it. Because by going full force into the divide, I feel like I got the most from it. So yeah, being able to find that goal and go 100% headstrong into it is crucial, I think, for any big challenge in life in general. That's a big thing to take away.
Well, what worked for me, very similar. When I chose to do it, my wife and I, we laid out a few ground rules. And one of them was, don't let me quit, encourage me. Another one is that I want to stay focused on the divide. I want to stay focused on my mission. I don't want to hear any negative energy from, the so-called the family garble stuff going on. If the dog dies, cremate it, put the dog in the freezer, don't tell me, we'll do something later when I get back. Because all of those little tidbits are mental distractions, and they take your focus away from your daily routine, from your goals. Because this is a mental game, no doubt about it. Like I said, it's 70% mental. And if you have distractions, if you have money issues at home, if you got family issues that are distracting you from your focus, from your goals, your chances of completing degrade.
No, I think a big thing for me, having like two very, very close family members battle of cancer and like one lose the battle during the divide was a huge mental challenge for me. So thing I took away from life's pretty shitty sometimes, but it'll also be amazing and glorious. I was able to see some of the prettiest parts of the country and meet amazing people, but it also kicked my ass with everything, with losing family members and all that stuff. But it was the most rewarding 3 weeks of my life. Hands down.
Yes, it was. I totally agree with that.
Would do it again in a heartbeat. If everyone had the money for me and all the stuff right now, I would go out there right now and before winter, and I would go out there and try to do it again. That's how much I love the divide now.
In fact, prior to this, I was 70% no, 30% yes. Now, after this podcast here, I'm thinking I'm leaning at more than 50-50. Dylan's inspiring me again.
Oh yeah, I've already set my goal. 2018, 17 days.
Yeah.
Boom. I'm already working towards it.
I want to see Paul go back in 2018, and I want to see you two race and see who gets to the finish line.
Well, I tell you what, I won't insult youth there. I'll give him a little bit of a head start, and I'll let him win. I'll let him win. I don't want to hurt his feelings.
And with that, I think that's a great place to end this, inspiring people and setting forth this challenge for 2018.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much for your time, Jason. It's been a pleasure to share my story with you and with your audience.
Oh, and thank you for welcoming us into your house and giving us all this food and having this museum prepared for us.
I know, it is like we're in a museum right now.
And also fresh well water.
That's right, fresh well water. So thanks again to both of those guys, and especially to Paul, who welcomed all of us into his home, had provided all kinds of delicious things for us to eat, and had put together a Tour Divide museum for our benefit. And if you're curious about what Paul and Dylan have been up to since we recorded this a few months ago, I have Erica here to share some updates. So Paul would like you to know...
My preparation for the Arrowhead 135 Ultra Marathon has been purchase of a fat tire bike, race quality clothing, and gathering the minimum equipment needed for the race. Each racer must carry the following: 1 fuel stove with 8 ounces fuel, 1 pint metal pot, 1 negative 20 degree sleeping bag, 1 tent or bivy sack, 1 sleeping pad, 3,000 calories of food, 2 liters or more insulated water container, Camelback, 2 blinking lights, 1 headlamp, 1 whistle. I've been doing a lot of riding, 500 miles, to test and adjust my equipment, riding day and night in all weather conditions. So far, the most extreme has been negative 5 degree with 20 mile per hour headwinds.
And here's what has been going on with Dylan.
My Lake Superior trip is coming along well. We will have a website set up at greatlakesgreatstories.org in the next month or so, and we are looking for sponsors and supporters at the moment. You can also follow the trip on Facebook and Instagram under Great Lakes Great Stories. We will be doing the ride in mid-May. I'm also looking at riding the TAT Trail from Virginia to Oregon. The trail is almost all double back and is around 5,000 miles. I hope to do this in the summer of 2018.
So now it's that time of the show. Time to go to the website, gogetoutside.com/podcast. Look for episode 45 with Paul Hytinen and Dylan Gonda. And there you are going to find many, many useful things. lots of photos. We have lots of photos from both of them, as well as copious useful links. Links to Paul's Facebook page in case you'd like to get in touch with him and get a little information about the Tour Divide or cycling in general. And then links to Dylan's Instagram, Facebook page, a video about him put together by his university, and a link to his upcoming Great Lakes Great Stories project that he mentioned in his update, and numerous other links specific to the Tour Divide Trail or cycling in general, such as links to the Ride the Divide documentary, bikepacking.net, bikepacking.com, tourdivide.org, Konan Stevens Tour Divide video, Crazy Larry's Tour Divide Facebook page, and the website for the Arrowhead 135. So I've spoken to a number of people during this season about bikepacking and about cycling in general, and they have all inspired me to go ahead and purchase a bike as well. So within the next couple of weeks, I am going to go out and purchase my own proper bike. So have you ever wanted to reach us here at the show, or are you just itching to share your thoughts about this show with us? Well, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can send us an email, go@butcherbirdstudios.com. I respond to all emails that are not spam. So go ahead and send that, and if you don't hear back from me, send it again, because maybe it was captured in some sort of spam filter, but I promise to return all email messages. But perhaps email is not your thing. You prefer the staticky sound of the telephone machine? Well, do not worry. You can contact us at 818-925-0106 and leave us a message there on our Google voicemail. And if you've enjoyed this show, I would love to ask you to do a favor for us. Go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you consume this podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the show, rate the show, review the show, and if you wouldn't mind, please share the show with someone who you think may enjoy it. Next time on the show, Jen Valee. She is an outdoor educator, surfer, and diver in Orlando, Florida. So come back February 1st and hear about the ways the outdoors have impacted her and the various college students who have participated in her programs. See you then.